Halbrin from the San Diego Union Tribune.
Hey, Jayce, not only are you managing for the first time in the big leagues, but now you are managing a 60-game season in the middle of a pandemic. How are you wrapping your head around this and everything that lies ahead from not only managing the on-field part, but also making sure that your players stay safe and your coaches and everything that goes along with this?
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. As far as the 60 games, look, all 30 teams are in the same boat. It's going to be new. I probably draw back to a little bit of managing, whether it's Arizona Rookie League, which is around 60 games, Dominican Rookie League, which I believe at the time, I was down there for 2 or 3 seasons. That was 70 some games. So I don't think it's a secret. The season's going to be a sprint. We've got to get off. I think all teams, you got to get off to a good start, and you've got to you got to play good baseball, and the importance of every game should bring some excitement. As far as what we're doing with our players and with our trainers and the staff and everything like that, baseball has been they've sent out a ton of protocols. We got the last one last night. It's I believe over 100 pages, and we have a group of people working through it, and we've been very fortunate so far. Now that things can turn quickly. That's the one thing we know. So we're not doing any victory laps or celebrating. But I think just overall, we're excited to get back on the field and, try to fight for some normalcy in this summer and getting on the field and playing some baseball.
We'll go to AJ Cassavell, MLB.com.
Hi, Jayce.
What's up, AJ?
Aside from the obvious challenges presented by the virus, what are some of the other challenges of a 3-week camp to get ready for the season and maybe kind of implementing some of your philosophy on the team in the midst of all this?
Yeah, obviously besides the COVID, all of our players are used to playing baseball this time. There's been very few that have gone with a preparation before the season, cranked up a couple weeks of spring training, and then had a couple months down. So I think deep down, our biggest fear and maybe our biggest challenge is in 3 weeks, getting our guys into shape, ready to play, understanding the reality if we make a misstep, or if somebody steps on the gas too early, a 6 to 8 week injury, whether it's an oblique, whether it's a hamstring, et cetera, there's a ton of injuries that can happen in the game. But the reality is you're probably going to miss the entire season, if not a huge portion of it. So balancing, getting our legs underneath us, getting our arm cycled back into shape and getting back into playing shape and having to do that relatively quick, I think is going to be our biggest challenge.
Okay, we'll send it over to Jorge.
Tingler, thank you for your time. And I want you to know, with this season with 60 games, do you think the process will be accelerated so much for the goal for the San Diego Padres, which is the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't think anything changes from our expectation. We was really proud or happy with where we were building up to into spring training before everything hit and it broke up. And our expectation, is still the same. We were preparing to, be a playoff team and do damage throughout the playoffs and go. And so, this year's going to be different. There's no doubt about it. It's 60 games. But that still doesn't mean that, the rules are set and 30 teams have the same rules, and we're looking forward to competing.
All right, we'll go to Kevin.
Hey, Jayce. What does spring training look like? Like you were doing your workouts already with guys in shifts, and how long are the coaches' days going to be? What are some of those challenges and unique things?
Well, we feel pretty confident we're going to have 2 sites or 2 areas to work at. I hate to get into too much detail because we've got several plans in place. And as we're kind of sorting through the rules, we didn't know the restrictions. Was it going to be, 4 players per session like it currently is now? Were they going to double that to 8? Was it going to be 20? So we couldn't really get too far, ahead or down the line. And we're going to spend the next day or two going over what those rules are. They looks, for the most part, we're not going to be too restricted. So we're potentially could be, for the first couple days, maybe pitchers and catchers at one area with position players at another ballpark. And, I think with, 3 weeks to go, we can only go as fast as our guys are prepared. But I think, maybe a possible advantage is if we are prepared, being able to get into inter squads, being able to see live pitching, getting live reads off the bat. The sooner we can do that, the more of those situations we can create, I think we believe would help prepare us to get off to a good start.
Thanks, man.
Okay, we'll go to Marty.
Hi, Jayce. A two-part question, if I may. What have you seen, or the majority of your players working out here in San Diego, what have you seen from those players? And we might laugh at some of the baseball protocols that are coming out as far as things that the players just don't realize they're doing, whether it's spitting in the dugout or pitchers licking their fingers. How hard is it going to be to break players out of their physical routines?
Yeah, I guess I'll tackle the first part. We've had a pretty good size of players working out, both here, and we certainly have a group of players that, they call home right outside Peoria. So they've been able to access the spring training complex. And, I think as an organization, we feel pretty proud of the commitment that our guys have been coming in, preparing, working, with a lot of question marks in the air. And so, I think our main goal has been, we didn't know if we're going to have a start date. We didn't know when that was. And the guys that have been coming in, our only goal was just try to get better each and every day. And when that start date happens, that's where we're going to be. So I've been, very happy with the effort, the commitment of a big portion of our players. With that being said, to tackle the new rules, I think we've had time and we've had restrictions. Guys they currently come in now and they're going through, if it's something's getting your temperature checked twice and certain protocols, social distancing, cleaning our hands, using the sanitizer, a lot of things like that. I would say for us to practice some of these protocols that we're going through now, certainly it's where we're going to sit in the dugout and to your point, we can't go to the mouth, on the mound, and being able to test out, if it's the rag, a damp rag and things like that, being able to practice those, implement them in a 3-week span, I think is going to be important. And we're going to find out, where's the best place to be sitting if you're coming in and pinch hitting possibly and things like that, because we're going to have, rules with how many people can be in the dugout. So we've got to go through all that. But I think the best way to be prepared is we're going to have to practice it, and we're probably going to fail at some things, but we're going to learn some things over these next three weeks and hopefully get as efficient as we can with some of the new protocols in place.
Okay, we'll go to Troy Hirsch, Fox 5.
Hey, Jayce, 2 questions for you. First is, I know that some of your players have been working out at Petco Park and some on their own. Do you have an idea? I know AJ mentioned, I want to see what our players look like and what kind of shape they're in. Do you have an idea of what kind of shape your players are in, from pitchers to position players at this point?
Yeah, I'd say for the most part we do. Probably up to 85-90% of the guys that come in. We've not only seen them here, but they've either been in Arizona or we've been in contact with the workouts they've been doing at their respected homes. So we've all got to get through our testing. We're going to have day 1, we believe, on the 3rd, and we'll be able to do more evaluations there. But I don't think we're expecting any surprises on, for example, somebody coming in out of shape or something like that. I think like that would be a surprise. I think we've got a pretty good feel of where the majority of our guys are.
And the second question is, I don't know if you watched any of the KBO League games and what they did there with ambiance, with, putting ranging from stuffed animals in the stands or anything like that. Has there been any talk among the organization about crowd noise, walk-up songs, any sort of that to add ambiance to these games that won't have fans?
We've definitely had discussion on those things, and I think what we're going to do is through some of that discussion is take some of those ideas and test them out. Maybe it's during some of our inner squats, maybe it's during our practice, and look to get feedback from our players. Our goal is we want to create as much energy as we can in the stadium. And, I think truthfully, over the past, probably 95 to 99% of that energy has been from the fans. And so, we've got to find ways to do that, especially when you're talking a 60-game season. You can't really afford to be flat for too long.
Thank you, Jayce.
We'll go to Dennis Lynn, The Athletic.
Hey, Jayce, what do you think of getting the universal DH probably a little bit early for you as a manager, and which players do you see that possibly benefiting this year?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, with the DH, we didn't know if we're going to have it. It looked like we were going to have it. Then it was, looking like we weren't, through all the negotiations. And so, a couple things that, I was concerned about was, the pitchers starting up. I certainly think of guys, like Lamet or Richards, who were coming off Tommy John in the prior years, and them not only having to prepare to be a starting pitcher and build up, but I was a little bit concerned about those guys swinging a bat, and I know the work that those guys put in on their rehab, and just the thought of them running down the line or pulling oblique while they're hitting. So honestly, from a player safety standpoint, I'm happy they're doing it this year. As far as how we're going to utilize that DH, obviously we've got 3 weeks of spring training, but I think we're going to have some options. We're going to have some options to give some maybe everyday guys rest from the field where they can use that DH spot. I think we've got an opportunity to play some hot hands. If somebody's swinging the bat extremely well, I think we've got a chance to play some matchups, whether that's left, right. And, we're going to have a combination of guys, competing for those at-bats. And so I think competition's a good thing, whether that's, guys that have maybe dealt with some injuries in the past. Frenchie comes to mind. Naylor comes to mind. Is Mejia swinging a hot bat? I'm leaving guys, off the top. Oh, Ty France for sure. So I think we've got some lefties, we got some righties, we got some power, we got some contact guys like Greg Garcia. So I think we've got some versatility in that spot. Now figuring out how we want to use that. We're going to use the 3 weeks or so to kind of anchor that in.
All right, back to AJ Cassavell.
Jayce, strategy-wise, how do you expect your job maybe to be different when you're playing one game out of 60 versus one out of 162? What kinds of things might change or be different this year versus regular season?
Yeah, I think strategy-wise, it reminds me a little bit, at least off the top of my head, of winter ball. It's a somewhat shorter season, and certainly every game matters. You've got a little bit of expanded rosters. And so I see – I don't want to say compare it to that exactly, but I do think some of the challenges are building these pitchers up over 3 weeks. I feel safe in saying that, we're not going to be prepared to go 8 and 9 innings the first and second times around once the season starts. So I would imagine that the use of some bullpen arms, whether that's 1 inning guys or going one time through the order. And I think, the value of having, I don't want to say a deep bullpen, but a deep pitching staff, and being able to use guys to keep them fresh and also to build them up properly throughout the season. I think those are going to be some of the challenges, as we get up and going.
We'll go to Ben Higgins.
Hey, Jayce. I think people who are talking about baseball uniting the country might be asking a little much, but is there a responsibility maybe of players and coaches to model good social distancing? Is that anything that you are thinking about as you get ready for this season?
Yeah, I do think there is, a responsibility or an opportunity to show people, and certainly maybe show youth baseball and for the importance of it to continue in the game. I hope that we can show that through our protocols and practicing that this game can be safe and played. So, I think the main thing is, we're just excited to get back on the field. We're excited to get back and compete. I know it's going to be different, and certainly from the fans' perspective, but I'm excited for them to be able to watch. And we all look forward to the day where people and fans are allowed back in the stadium. I think that's what everybody wants. It's certainly what the players want. They feed off the fans and the energy and all that aspect. But I think until time. It's better to be on the field than it is, to be sitting out the entire season. And so hopefully we can show by, practicing these protocols that it's safe and, that we can execute this game and have a good season.
Back to Annie.
Hey, Jayce, you know what it's like to play the game and to be a 20-something ball player. It's one thing to give these guys a 106-page book and institute a lot of protocols at the stadium, but once they leave the stadium, they're really policing themselves. What are the challenges going to be in making sure that this group of guys adheres to the best they can, some of the safety requirements and the ways to lessen the spread when they're out of the ballpark?
Yeah, I think the best way is just open and honest and speaking from the heart, and doing the best to speaking the truth and for our players to understand that, we're going to have, members maybe on our staff that are in a higher risk. And there's certainly, whether maybe some of our players aren't in the higher risk, but I feel confident that the majority of us know people that are. And whether that's bringing something back to your kids who are then possibly interacting with grandparents, aunts and uncles, and things like that. And so I think just in order to, fully understand that, it's going to be a challenge on some of the downtime and some of the off days and things like that. But I think the best way is just to be open and honest and understand that our season's 60 games. Which is, it's very short, but we talk about sacrificing things and maybe we've got to sacrifice, some nights out at restaurants and things like that in order to keep everybody in this clubhouse and everybody's families as safe as possible.
We'll go to Bob Scanlon.
Jayce, good to see you. Welcome back. Quick question about your bullpen. Obviously, that was going to be one of the strengths for the team this year. Does that become even more of a factor given this shortened season? And how much do you anticipate being able to go to them early in games and your anticipation in terms of the pacing of the bullpen? Obviously, you talked about getting the legs under the position players, but
sure.
From a bullpen standpoint, how much pacing needs to take place?
Well, obviously, we got to pitch well. I still feel confident about the strength of our bullpen. I feel confident about the strength of our starters as well. And so, we need to get through these next couple of weeks. We need to build up properly. We need to be healthy. And I hope it is a strength because, when we were getting down to roster cuts and who was going to make the team before everything hit, we had some very good pitchers that were probably looking to not break the team and probably break in AAA. And so I hope it's a strength because at least early, we may have the opportunity to add 3 or 4 of those guys early with 30-man rosters, dwindling down to 28 and 26. So I still think I really like the arm talent that we have down there, the pitchability of some of those guys. And I look forward to watching these guys compete and fight for those spots.
Thanks.
All right, back to Troy. If Troy's ready. It's all yours, Troy, if you're ready.
Sorry about that. Jayce, a clarification thing from you for this modified spring training. Are there any games against any other teams? Like, will you be playing the Dodgers or Angels or road tripping, or is it all just going to be inter-squad and the first game you play against an opponent will be on opening day?
Yeah, we're still reading through those the rules on that. And from my understanding, it was either 2 or 3, the last I'd heard. But we've got a group currently up in the office right now going through those 100 pages and understanding that. So I think our expectations, whether it's 2 or whether it's 3, it's not going to be many. And so the majority of our at-bats and live looks are going to be inter-squatted against ourselves.
And at this point during the regular season, are you looking to the team's going to travel? Like if you play the Rockies, you'll get on a charter and you'll fly to Denver and do that as it would be during a regular season?
From my understanding, yes, but there's going to be different rules of how we check in. And, for example, the food service on the plane and drinks on the plane. I don't understand exactly yet all those changes. They just told us that it's going to be a little bit different procedure of checking on, and then some of the services that happen on the planes.
You feel like you're drinking from a fire hose right now with this 108-page document?
I'm lucky that there's a lot of other people breaking it down and giving us cliff notes.
Thank you, Jayce.
Yeah.
We got time for a couple more. Jorge?
Tingler, in this time of quarantine, do you have a new strategy to apply with your players, or you keeping the same plan since the beginning?
No, I think our main focus is going to be what we set out to do in spring training, and that was with the pitchers attacking the strike zone. That was, playing clean defense, catching the ball and throwing the ball to the right bases. I certainly expect our guys to be hustling out of the box and running the bases very well. And, last but not least, I think at the plate, the way we manage the zone, the way that we stay out of pitches outside the zone and are aggressive in the zone and in our hot spots to hit, I think that's going to be critical. Again, like on the defense, the way our pitchers field their position and are able to collect outs, I think it's going to be critical. But that really doesn't change from, 162 or a 60 game. We're just talking about, playing good, clean, fundamental baseball.
Thank you.
All right, last one, Lee Hamilton.
Hey, Jayce, I got on a little bit late. I apologize for that. In terms of I got 2 questions. The veteran pitchers coming off the surgeries, Lamet and obviously Garrett Richards, 3 extra months for them to throw in some type of structured thing before you actually start playing. How critical is that to the success of this team that you've now had that window? And then I have a follow-up for you.
Yeah. It probably puts them without any limitations, going through the season. Now, I don't want to say that too early on the fact that we've got to get through these next couple weeks, build up, have a clean bill of health, no issues, going forward. So, but I don't really see us going into game 54, 55 and, having to spot start somebody because we've reached too many innings.
And a follow-up question, there had been dialogue possibly with a 20-man taxi squad that those guys would open in San Diego or possibly at a spring training facility. And there was also some dialogue that maybe you'd take 20 or 30 minor league players and just plant them at the spring training facility for the rest of the summer as insurance policies. Can you shed some light on, Mackenzie Gore, Ryan Weathers, and whether they're here as part of your 60 or whether they're there? Is there going to be a there in Arizona?
So right now, what I believe we're allowed for this spring training in San Diego is going to be 60. And we're still going through right now and determining, probably who the last 10 or 12 are. So we've still got some calls, to be made. We've got a couple days to do that. So I would expect to, be able to announce that here, maybe it's over the weekend, but in the next couple days for sure, because there's some really tough calls to be made.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Jayce, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Stay safe and let us know if anybody needs anything. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.